On this channel, we've covered what budget means, how to identify animators, what bad animation is, and of course, the endless coverage of various Dragon Ball related media. Throughout these videos, I'm sure you've started to gather at least an idea of the type of animators or style of animation I personally enjoy, but I've never taken the time to sit down and specifically talk about who my favorites are, what aspects of their work I love, and what shows from their back catalogues I highly recommend. I've never really given you guys the chance to talk about your preferences either, so I hope we can use this video as an opportunity to sit back and talk about what we love, recommend some animators, some shows, and just get to know each other a little bit better. And if you're new to this channel or new to animation, then I hope you get something out of it too. There are a lot of different approaches to movement. For some, the heavily detailed artwork and highly stylized, exaggerated timing of NAOTOSHI SHIDA's work is where their love is at. This of course goes hand in hand with animators like YUYA TAKAHASHI. It's big and bold, with a real emphasis on rhythm over anything else. There's also very snappy animators like HIROYUKI IMAISHI or YOSHINARI, very clearly inspired by YOSHINORI Kaneda. They almost want you to stop and admire their flashy keyframes, often snapping between really intense and dynamic poses. You can pause at pretty much any point in their work and get a perfect screenshot. On the other end of the scale are the animators whose emphasis is almost entirely on movement. The characters flow from position to position seamlessly, there's no distinctive keyframe versus in between. The characters are often stylized in a very minimalist way, lots of loose line work and relaxed poses. This is the type of animation that I absolutely adore, and it's where almost every single one of my picks lies in this video. So let's get started in no particular order. First up is Shinya OHIRA, perhaps the most unconventional of anyone on my list. OHIRA's work is hugely expressionistic. It reminds me of very famous artist Gustav Klimt's sketches. It's characterized by its hugely rough line work. There are no ruled lines here. The characters move as though filled with water, with shading and form changing from frame to frame. Everything about his work is extreme. The focus is totally on expression through abstract form, rather than adhering to rigid reality. The intensity of a scene is conveyed through wild brushstrokes or pencil marks, and of course the dramatic deformations. Unlike most animators, what's happening in the scene isn't what evokes a feeling, it's the way that it's animated. Wave Motion Canon is a spectacular website dedicated to covering all types of animation, and there was a part of their OHIRA coverage that really stuck out to me. I think it sums up 1, why I love Japanese animation so much, and 2, why OHIRA is one of my favorites. It says, whereas American animation is mainly concerned with truthfully representing the characters that are being animated, Japanese animation instead focuses on the depiction of the movement itself. This is so true, and if you're looking for entire pieces that exemplify this approach, I strongly recommend Kid's Story, a short in the Animatrix anthology. It was supervised by animator Shinji Hashimoto, who actually almost made this list and is definitely a big influence for OHIRA. Ping Pong is another show that is also about wearing its expressionistic style on its sleeve and embracing it from start to finish. You'll struggle to find another sports anime quite as interesting as this one. Next up is Mitsuo Iso, who in some ways is very much the opposite of Shinya OHIRA. Iso embodies realism. He understands how things are supposed to move in reality and applies that to his animation seamlessly. Every movement accounts for the object's weight and its inertia. It's an absolutely unbelievable skill, and it makes a scene so breathtaking to watch. Even when he's animating things that simply don't exist, the Avas in Evangelion for example, they move in ways that totally sell them as living beings. The way he goes about achieving this is fascinating. The typical workflow of an animator is to draw the beginning and end key poses and work through the middle sections before having in-betweeners fill in the rest. Iso totally does away with that, handling every frame in his sequences and treating every drawing as a keyframe. He's never drawing from pose to pose, but rather moving through the motion frame by frame in a really organic way. This results in the 100% seamless movement you find in his work. There's no snapping from key pose to key pose here. Things accelerate, decelerate, and change course in totally natural ways. This makes him an absolute master of movement and one of my favourite animators working today. There are a few shows that really embody his work as a whole. Even his passion project Den-O Coil failed to translate his style across the entire series. If you're looking for his best work, you can't go wrong with classics like Ghost in the Shell, Style, the end of Evangelion, and of course, Blood, the Last Vampire. Not quite a classic there, but definitely some of his best work. Next up is a much younger animator in comparison, not quite the youngest on this list, but at 33 years old, Hironori Tanaka is a shining example of the unique young talent found in the industry. He was first discovered with his contributions to Toei's various Precure series, and was so impressive that director Takashi Otsuka at one point just left vague instructions on his storyboard and left everything else up to Tanaka. Stylistically, he's most recognizable for his OHIRA-esque line work, particularly when it comes to the hair. When he's let loose, characters will typically distort in a similar fashion, though certainly not enough to scare off those who care for a more grounded approach. His effects are very aggressive, dominating his action scenes and making for some seriously eye-catching compositions. He's one of the hardest working animators around. You can find his work across so many different shows. It's absolutely astounding for someone his age. Concrete Revolutio has a whole bunch of contributions from him, and even if you're not a fan, that show is one of the best looking things to come out in a long time, so do check it out anyway. Moving along, we have Norio Matsumoto, an animator who's been around for quite some time, but first started seriously blowing minds from the early 90s onwards. Fans of Naruto will know him for delivering pretty much all of the mind-blowing fights from the original series, in particular the battle between Naruto and Sasuke. He amped up the action in Rurouni Kenshin, a show that doesn't actually have masses of great animation on the whole, and contributed the far superior Gon vs. Hanzo in the 1999 adaptation of Hunter x Hunter. He's an action extraordinaire. His work is remarkably fluid, and with extreme use of smears and squash and stretch. I don't think it'd be inaccurate to say his extensive work on Naruto helped to form the style of action that became the norm throughout the rest of Shippuden. Whether it be his character acting or breathtaking fight scenes, Matsumoto's absolutely got you covered. Naruto's the obvious recommendation as far as shows go, but don't hesitate to check out Isao Takahata's Tale of the Princess Kaguya for a very different look at Matsumoto's talents. Lastly, and despite me saying this was in no particular order, I have left my favourite for last, Shingo Yamashita. At only 30 years old, he is far and away the youngest animator on this list, but perhaps one of the most idiosyncratic of the lot. He is a part of the web generation of animators, meaning he's one of the self-taught talents in the industry who rose to fame through their GIFs across social media. Unlike the majority of animators who used to work on pencil and paper, Yamashita is a purely digital animator who's been known to work in Flash. Thanks to the playback freedoms offered by digital animation, it's much easier to put together scenes with more complex camera sequences, and it's something you'll find in a good number of Yamashita's scenes. This is helped to life by a great deal of 2D background animation, along with some seriously complex effects. Much like everyone on this list, Yamashita continues the running theme of exaggeration and expression in his work. He wanders severely off-model to deliver some truly disturbing scenes in a good way, and much like OHIRA, he's not afraid to bend the rules, and it's not uncommon to see him entirely abandon line work in favour of dynamic blobs of colour. In spite of these influences, his work is very much his own, and he really is like no other. Birdie the Mighty, particularly the second season, is one of the most amazing examples of webgen animation, and you can find not only some of Yamashita's best work there, but also the likes of Tanaka and Matsumoto too. Yozakura Quartet is another very webgen-y show, and definitely something to check out if this type of animation appeals to you. Loose, heavily idiosyncratic styles are 100% my thing. I get so excited whenever I see movement like this, and it's one of the hardest things to get right. Making simple look stylish is not easy, but all 5 of these animators do it with ease, and it blows my mind every single time. Thank you so much for listening. These have been some of my favourite animators in the industry. Be sure to let me know in the comments section where your tastes lie, who your favourite animators are, and what shows are best to get a feel for their style. Before I go, I do have just one last thing to say. For those who have followed my channel since I first started covering animation, you may be sat there and wondering where the hell Naoki Tate is on this list. I love Tate. I admire everything he's achieved at Toei, and he's absolutely one of the strongest at the studio and my favourite as far as Dragon Ball Super goes. I will defend him to the end of days when fans try to claim he's somehow terrible, but I'm also a realist, and it's clear he's not a touch on the animators listed up to this point. I just wanted to clear that up before the comments roll in. Again, thank you for listening. Be sure to rate the video, let me know down below what your favourites are, subscribe if you're new, check out my latest video on what bad animation is, and of course, I will see you next time.